Hello, hi, how are you? Welcome back into another podcast by George. Time for another house call. We're overdue as always because this political thing is a day-by-day deal and we only get to visit with a good doctor every week or two. It's Dr. Stephen W. Schmidt, the Lucan Endowed Professor of Political Science from Iowa State University. He's been on the scene teaching political science for 50 plus years. And he's amazed at what's happening around this great country of ours, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. But I want to welcome him in. Doc, welcome back to Podcast by George.
It was a great pleasure, and I keep trying to get all my friends to sign up for your podcast. So you're doing a great job.
Well, thanks. Yeah, we're getting new signups all the time. We've got a great following on Facebook and iTunes, and even the iHeartRadio app and Spotify, places like that. Where I'm trying to build is trying to get people to subscribe on YouTube, but I'm finding that a lot of people follow the podcast on their phones, and of course YouTube videos sometimes aren't the greatest on phones, so I think that's got something to do with it. But it's growing slowly but steadily. I'm happy with the progress, and if folks are, the doc's got his fleece on today. I'm wearing the short sleeve still. I mean, I'm rocking the summertime look here because it's going to be almost 60 degrees, folks. And I told somebody on Facebook the other day, I said, they were talking about the great weather, and I said, yeah, it's great weather, but that's kind of like the great last meal that you get right before the warden comes to take you to the electric chair. I mean, how's your steak, folks? I hope.
Well, that's true. And, when you live in a 120-year-old farmhouse, sometimes you got to wear a sweater even when it's getting nice outdoors.
I hope you enjoy your steak. I hope you like the weather. And honest to God, again, I want to call out every meteorologist in the country to at least mention climate change. God, it couldn't be more obvious. Again, on Twitter or Facebook, I was kind of going back and forth with somebody. They were saying, well, I remember when it was warm back in the 60s. I say, oh, God, not that argument. Yeah. Do you remember when the polar ice caps melted in the 60s? Yeah. Well, I think it was right after Batman came on twice a week. I mean...
Well, one chunk of one of them just fell into the ocean, and there's this big concern about it crashing into some other island. I don't know. It's a mess out. It's a mess out there. Yeah.
Well, I said,
we need to sell more coal.
Yeah. And there, I don't know if folks caught or not, but there has been a little progress on the wind front. A lot of people are down on wind energy, but I saw where they have a means now of recycling those propellers, those blades now. They're going to make cement out of them, concrete out of them. They can take them and recycle them that way. That was one of the big knocks on wind energy, was that those blades wear out after a while, and they had tons and tons of them just laying around defiling the environment, basically. But they said, no, we can recycle those. So,
well, the same problem. I have a sailboat made out of fiberglass. And there's been this huge debate. What do you do with a sailboat or a motorboat that's out of fiberglass and that's decommissioned, no longer good? It's going to just be junk. And I think they're doing the same thing. They're talking about converting them to something useful. So, you always find a solution. The engineers, can come up with wonderful stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put this up on the screen to get us going here, and Doc can take a look at this too, because this is, when I think about him when I see these things all the time, we don't always get to talk to him, but this is out of Common Dreams, and the Doc and I have talked about this before. This is just today, I believe, and it reads, most Senate Republicans and a pair of Democrats teamed up Wednesday to vote down resolutions aiming to block the Trump White House's lame duck sale of $23 billion worth of F-35s, Reaper drones, and missiles to the United Arab Emirates, ignoring warnings that providing the Middle East nation with more high-tech weaponry would further implicate the U.S. in the mass murder of civilians. And of course, what they're talking about primarily there, folks, is Yemen. With the exception of Senator Rand Paul, every Republican senator present voted against the pair of Democrat-led resolutions. Senator Kristen Sinema joined the GOP in voting against both resolutions, while Senator Mark Kelly, Democrat from Arizona, voted in favor of blocking the F-35 sale, but against preventing the sale of the Reaper drones to the UAE, a partner along with the U.S. in the Saudi-led assault on Yemen. Now, one of the reasons that jumped off the page at me, he was just confirmed in the Senate. He was coming in to fill that seat that was left vacated with the death of John McCain, and the Democrats were excited. My God, we've got 2 Democratic senators from the great state of Arizona. What a wonderful thing this is. Well, okay. Mark Kelly just voted in favor of allowing the Trump administration to sell drones, Reaper drones, to the UAE. Now, as the Huffington Post's Abkar Saeed Ahmed noted, the defense unit of military contractor Raytheon, which is crucial to the drones being considered, is based in Arizona. A possible reason behind the 2 Arizona Democrats' votes. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk to the doc about, because I've mentioned this before. Very few people bitch about this like I do, Doc, and it has to do with this parochial, corporatist view of politics. Now, when I was a kid and I was reading political science in high school, the way that I kind of thought about it, and maybe it was who's naive, Kay, but I thought your state legislator, they're going to be involved with the local issues and businesses right down maybe to your local community. You go to the U.S. House of Representatives, and they're going to be much more involved with the state and promoting the entire state of the much larger district within that state, certainly. Then you step up to the United States Senate, and I would expect, again, when I was a kid and naive, that the senators would have more of a worldview, more of a national view, maybe start at saving the planet or the universe or something and working their way down. But like I said, I probably was naive the entire time. Money got involved in politics like we've never seen before. But here are 2 Democratic U.S. senators in Arizona voting on, I think, on behalf of Raytheon and in favor of selling drones, Reaper drones, to the UAE. Doc, has it always been that way, or is it becoming increasingly so?
No, it's always about jobs, and it's whether it's jobs in the state, exporting corn or whatever it is. And these foreign policy questions very often, people don't understand why that might not be a great idea to arm up Saudi Arabia and other states in an area that's already so violent. On the other hand, you got the counter argument, which is, Iran is Saudi Arabia's biggest enemy, and we don't want to give these weapons to the Arab countries to commit war crimes, but to defend themselves against Iran. So it gets really mucky and messy. And what you just mentioned about Raytheon, being an important corporation with lots of jobs in Arizona, that plays a role in it. And you were a pretty naive kid. Let me tell you something. I used to think when I was a kid, my dad would sometimes take me from his optical business to the bank to deposit money or something. I used to think that banks were a public interest where, they served the public. I didn't understand that they were for-profit, profit-making enterprises. So, we were pretty naive. And, when you look at the nominees of the Biden administration, you don't see a whole lot of progressives. You see, Trump saying if Biden gets nominated, the American economy is going to collapse because he's going to have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in charge of the Federal Reserve.
Get real.
No, not gonna happen.
I don't think so.
The stock market is holding about as strong or even stronger than before Biden, presumably got elected, although that's still up in the air. It's Biden is a middle of the road conservative type of Democrat. He's appointing some minorities and a few people that I think liberals can live with, but he's certainly not going to, turn everything into a socialist republic.
I don't think there's any worry about that. And that was the entire country is that way. I tell people, and I don't know, a lot of folks don't disagree with me, but I'm telling people the Democrats of today, most of them, rank and file, by and large, are Reaganite type Republicans from my era. They wouldn't even, Robert Ray would have been to the left of most of these people. They're Terry Branstad type people. They're not what I would consider to be Democrats. And I want to put this up on the screen now as further evidence of NDAA. $735 billion was just approved. More Democrats voted for this budget than Republicans, believe it or not. You can see the tally up there at the top, with 195 Democratic yeas and 140 Republican. 40 Republicans voted against it, 37. Now let's scroll down here. I want to find you some names that might be familiar to folks from the Hawkeye
hold on
State.
For a second.
Yeah.
Hold on for a second. You got to explain what you're talking about, because some of our viewers and friends don't know what that acronym is that you just mentioned. What did they vote for?
The National Defense Authorization Act. This is the funding for the Pentagon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But
so let's go down the list here. I want to identify people that are familiar with this from Iowa. Now, these are Democrats, folks, in Iowa. There's Axne, top of the list, approved this. Also included in that NDAA, not to be overlooked, is a provision that would prevent early withdrawal from places like Afghanistan, to put the brakes on that so that we don't come out of those places quickly or offhandedly. And you realize we got to stay in Afghanistan because we haven't been there long enough. We're 19 years now, going to be 20 next year. So that was a key part of this provision that Axne voted for. And if we go on down the list here, we'll see our good friend, where are you, Fink, that just got defeated. Finkenauer, there she is. Finkenauer is on that list. And we go over here. Let's find the other guy that retired. Lobisak. There we go. There's 3 Democrats on that list. And oddly enough, if you go down, they usually vote lockstep with another guy that didn't vote. Now, I'm not exactly sure why. I don't know if I can get this up on the screen. There we go. King. From Iowa. Maybe he's just stepped aside at this point, or everybody dislikes him so much he doesn't vote. But the other thing about it is, it doesn't make a hell of a lot of difference because it's going to pass anyway. And why not dig your heels in a little bit and make a point and tell people that this is nuts? We can't continue to spend money like this, particularly in a pandemic with people lining up in food lines, for God's sake. This is a wrong time for this. We've been adding money on top of money for decades, and why not vote no? Let's find some of the nays here, some of the people that voted against this that might be familiar to the national stage. Not so much. Well, there's Tulsi Gabbard. She voted against it. How about over here? How about Jayapal voted against funding this, giving the warmongers there's money. There's Nadler. I know that Ro Khanna is on the list. There's Ocasio-Cortez that the doc was talking about. But there's only 78 nays on 335 yays for the NDAA. Man, we got money for bombs. We're really getting worried about having money for other stuff, including helping people in the pandemic. But it seems like we always have money for this.
Well, it's pretty hard to vote against the military, especially because the way the United States is configured, we have military facilities. We have people in uniform in every single state. We have veterans in every state. And so, voting against the Defense Appropriation Act is like voting against motherhood, apple pie, all of the things that, are kind of untouchable.
It's who and what we are.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
That is the way it is. We are the world policeman. We are the world leader. We are supposed to be in 100 and some countries trying to fix civil wars, religious wars, ethnic wars, economic wars. And that requires us to have all that capability. And we've never sat down and said, can we really fix those things? And if we can, maybe we can do it with, humanitarian assistance, economic aid, helping farmers become more prosperous, giving people some assistance in developing their own healthcare systems, as opposed to having to use, military force. Then the answer is, have you seen what's going on around the world, in Africa, in the Middle East, in Latin America? it's nothing but warfare. You got guerrillas, you got terrorists. They're kidnapping people. They're taking over parts of the countries. They're heavily armed. They're being supported by, you name the name, Castro, Putin, North Korea. And so human beings, George, are a pretty basic and unsophisticated species. We do like territoriality. We like to take a stand. This is our territory, and this is our religion, and you can even see that in the U.S. now, where I think we're edging too far to confrontation and armed confrontation. We've had protests, we've had all kinds of stuff, but people showing up heavily armed. That happens all over the world, and we try to sort of get ourselves involved there.
Yeah.
Maybe we ought to have a discussion about limiting where we get involved and how we get involved, but we never seem to get to that point.
Particularly since it does not work, is the God, the evidence couldn't be more clear. I mean, take a look at Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, Somalia,
Vietnam.
all these places.
Vietnam.
Vietnam. It does not work. Well, the other thing of it is, you think, well, why would these representatives from Iowa vote for this war machine? Well, there is some war machine in Iowa. Rockwell Collins is out there in the eastern part of the state. They're a defense industry provider and supplier. We're probably our second biggest industry next to agriculture in this state is the insurance industry. Doc, did you know that Humana is the fifth largest military contractor in the world? And I looked at that and I saw that. How the hell? Why would that be? Well, they are the providers of TRICARE, that benefit, insurance benefit for the military. And of course, you being in the classroom for 50 plus years, you realize that one of the biggest incentives for people to join the military and keep these wheels turning is that education. A free benefit that they get once they serve their term of service. They can go to school free. And of course, what always fails whenever it comes to a ballot initiative and ain't never going to pass? Free education in this country. If you had free education, a lot of people wouldn't be joining the military to get it. And in a volunteer armed forces, that would be a real problem.
We are a market economy. We're a capitalist economy. Have you ever clicked through the channels on cable? I don't know how many channels I have, but you click through them. Almost every single channel is a commercial enterprise trying to sell you something. Insurance for your car engine if it breaks. How many people's car engines blow up. It's, jewelry. It is, makeup. It is every
all
kind
these
of
drugs,
thing you can imagine. That's how this country operates. And, you can complain about it and point out the weaknesses of it, but that's not going to change. It's not going to change. We are a market economy and everything is market driven, including our health care. You see these stories about, oh my God, someone went to a hospital somewhere and had a treatment that would cost them $1,500 and the insurance paid most of it. And somebody went for the exact same treatment in another hospital in another state and they got charged $35,000. Yep. Go out there and do some comparative shopping. That's, we have that same issue with our textbook, which is, we work hard on it. It's a good textbook. We have a lot of internet material that's been available long before COVID. And so, the price is, it's pricey, but there is competition. So our publisher is constantly having to adjust how much they can charge for a textbook and how they deliver it. It's a marketplace. It's like a Middle Eastern bazaar, where you walk down the Kasbah And over
Yeah.
here, somebody is yelling at you, buy my
Yeah.
product. And over
Yeah.
here, another one says, no, his product is too expensive. Buy my
Yeah.
product.
Buy a chicken.
Um,
Buy a
that's
carpet.
how it goes.
Buy a bat, for God's sake. Yeah. Well, we kind of got off the rails here a little bit. I wanted to get to you on one topic of the day because it's what we're kind of where we ended the last time you and I talked, and that is
Mm.
these electors are being certified to vote in states around the country. Donald Trump is lost by any traditional measure. He's not conceding. Republicans in Congress are not conceding. Doc,
Right.
where are we at on this thing?
No, it is unprecedented in, at least in my experience. Maybe in the early days there were discussions like this, that the electors that were certified by those four key states that gave Joe Biden, basically the victory, were illegal, that there was a change in the voting laws with absentee ballots and things like mail-in ballots, and that those things are unconstitutional, and that therefore the electors that voted for Joe Biden in these states are phony, and that it has to be corrected. And President Trump has been pushing pretty hard on that. A lot of Republicans honestly are buying it. They really do think that there was massive corruption. That's what's, I think, something people should understand. Most Republicans who are still trying to discredit the electors that in a few days are going to have to vote in Congress to give Joe Biden the presidency, honestly think that there is something to this. I think a
They
lot of them, the
think.
people, well,
Yeah.
the people that are protesting, a lot of them, they're not getting paid to do it. They really think that there is a conspiracy, that there has been shenanigans, that the Venezuelan voting machines were manipulated and set to do all kinds of funny stuff and move votes from Trump to Biden. And that in a lot of these urban centers, there was collusion to basically undercount votes for Trump. And so this is not something that can be easily dismissed. But look, Biden won. No, it's not that easy at all, because if you really believe that there was a conspiracy and that there are illegal votes that gave Biden those electors, you may very well want to reconsider. And if you're a Republican in Congress, if one Republican says, I don't approve of the slate of electors that's been put in front of us, the House and Senate together then has to vote on how to deal with this. And it's possible that the Congress will nullify the electors for Joe Biden in some states.
Wow.
And will swing them and say, no, this was illegal. It's a conspiracy. We have to save our democracy. And so we're going to vote for the slate of Trump electors from Georgia and Pennsylvania and Michigan. And then all hell breaks loose if that happens. I mean, that would be a match thrown onto a huge gasoline spill on the interstate. And we don't know, if that's going to happen or not. But and of course, there's this lawsuit being filed by the Attorney General of Texas, asking the Supreme Court to basically take up the case of the states that were instrumental in Biden winning. That's another unusual situation. That lawsuit is probably going to be dismissed by the Supreme Court, again, the way it has other lawsuits that have come. They don't want to get involved in electoral shenanigans or manipulation or ruling on elections. They had enough of a problem in 2000. with Gore v. Bush. So the Supreme Court is going to say, forget it. But the Congress, it's a political institution.
Yeah, full of nuts. We talked about the business world, which I was involved in for many, many years. I used to chair meetings, and the way that I put it to folks on something serious in particular, I'd tell them, okay, here's the thing for this meeting. I don't want to hear what you think, feel, or believe. I don't care what you think, feel, or believe. I want to have the arguments that you have supported by data. Give me the data and tell me the sources, because that's going to carry the day. That argument will win. Now, that's not to say that what you think, feel, or believe isn't correct. Might, in a long shot scenario, might even be right. But the point of it is, I got to go with something, and I'm going with data and sourced material. And it's interesting that you were talking about change, because here's the next thing I want to put up on the screen, and this is going to probably be our last story here that'll take us out. All right, this is out of Politico. Poll: majority of Republicans, independents believe Trump will run in 2024. Among Republicans, 76% believed another Trump run to be likely, along with 60% of what are so-called independents, which I've always believed are just closet Republicans, but whatever. And it reads, a large majority of Republicans and independents have faith President Donald Trump will follow through on his musings about running for president again in 2024, according to Politico Morning Consult poll released Wednesday of this week. Among Republicans, 76% believed the 2024 likely run. 60% of independents. Democrats were less certain, with only 47% believing a run to be likely. Trump has flirted with running again in 4 years as his unfounded claims of a stolen victory this year increasingly fall apart in court, which the doc was talking about. Well, the reason that I wanted to get to this, let me get that off the screen, Doc, is that, and on the topic of change, I was extremely disappointed in the election of Joe Biden by the Democrats because he's not a candidate of change. People voted for Obama, hoping for change, didn't come. Biden is basically telling everybody we're going to return to yesteryear. He's been quoted as saying nothing will fundamentally change. And my point is, if something doesn't change, and for myself on the progressives, I'm talking about climate, I'm talking about healthcare, I'm talking about war. If those things don't change, they're going to go third party. And if they run out of the Democratic Party to a third party in 2024, the Republicans are going to solidly come to the polls because they didn't get any change that they wanted anyway under Joe Biden. And it's going to mean that Trump or one of his heirs, one of his kids, or somebody even worse than Trump is going to be looking good for 2024. Now, it's hard to hypothesize, but this is what I've been talking about on the podcast all along, about this need for something serious in the way of change to happen to prevent calamity in the country. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, what's interesting, too, is that if I was advising Donald Trump, I would say the best thing that could happen to you is to have Joe Biden be president for the next horrible 4 years, when the economy is in the toilet, when the vaccines, you're not going to get, herd immunity and vaccines. There's going to be all kinds of screw ups, and half the country doesn't want vaccines, and none of the minority population trusts vaccines. So there's going to be nothing but incredible disruption and disaster. Do I sound like a gloom and doom prophet here? If for the next 4 years are not going to be easy, and at the end of those 4 years, I would say to Trump, if you decide to run in 24, it's going to be a slide in, because Biden will not have been able to fix any of the things that we expected fixed: the international environment, the Chinese, the Iranian nuclear program, the economy, the healthcare system. You're not going to fix it. And so you can come back in and say, you see, look, let me try this again, because remember, those first 3 years of my presidency, the stock market doubled. We had full employment. The economy was booming. I had a tax cut, which stimulated all kinds of investment and spending and hiring. Give me another chance. So that's a scenario that is a little bit different from yours, but it's another feasible scenario.
I think it's very feasible.
We think that some of these very experienced and smart people that Biden is picking for his cabinet are actually going to be able to fix things. A lot of the world's and America's problems are pretty daunting. You know, you want climate change. Really? Come on, you know, George, how are you going to stop the icebergs from falling off of the glaciers and floating around the ocean and bringing up the sea level, and the, you know, fires in California and the severe storms? Yeah, you can try to do it, but it's not going to happen in the 4 years of the Biden administration. Not going to happen.
Well, and the climate scientists will tell you that we need to start diverting some of our treasure towards those endeavors by developing and distributing these alternative energy sources. And the president, for the first time ever, needs to start using the bully pulpit in Franklin Delano Roosevelt way, using the new medium of the internet as an example. Roosevelt used radio, got back in that day, to get people to start to do things that will change this curve. I mean, we got to turn the corner here on this type of thing, and it's not just businesses, and it's just not the military. It's up to each and every one of us to pull together, similar to the way that they had to pull together to overcome Great Depressions and wars and all those things in the earlier years of this country.
But remember, Roosevelt had the bully pulpit and had the ability to address the country, and conspiracy theorists and others had to just do it, you know, by writing some little columns in some useless little newsletter. The internet is as available for the crazies as it is for people who want, you know, to move into the new energy future. And so the population is nowadays not limited in its information to people who are trying to give them scientific facts.
No, I agree with that.
If you want,
network television still outdraws a lot of those internet channels, certainly. So exactly. I mean, it's still a very powerful concern. Radio is still powerful. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is powerful, but radio also is, you know, now often very divisive.
Oh, do you think?
Talk radio.
Oh my God,
boy!
Hello,
I mean.
Hello,
sure.
Rush.
So, yeah.
He's still a powerhouse, and I don't know how much he's got to run, because last time I saw Rush.
Well, there are other Rushes as well.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, and Rachel Maddow has, you know, her own followers.
Oh,
and,
absolutely.
And some people who think that Rachel is also out there, you know, selling things that, you know, that are a little too harsh. So we're in a situation that we haven't seen before, where every person can be a journalist. Every person can have their own television network.
That is the First Amendment.
And Facebook and Twitter, and we see what's going on right now with the lawsuits and so on. Those are incredibly powerful instruments that affect behavior, that affect the economy, and we haven't figured out how to deal with those. Vladimir Putin has figured out how to deal with those. No, you know.
Where was Vlad in this election, by the way? I didn't hear. He was, you know, he completely overturned the results of the 2016 election in the United States and got Donald Trump elected. But in 2020, the Russians were just completely non-factors. They didn't even appear in the stadium. I don't understand that. Doc, we got to let you go. I've run out of time again, and in this holiday season, I'm hoping we can get back with you here again before Christmas, certainly. But I want to give you a last word here. Anything you want to say in closing, particularly on this tenuous situation with Trump, maybe, and tell people what to look for and what to keep an eye on.
Well, I would look at what happens with that Supreme Court case that Texas is asking for. That one, I think, is going to go away. But I think you've got to keep an eye on your own congressional delegation and see what goes on in Congress when they begin to sit down to certify the Electoral College votes, because I think that could be one of the most important moments in American political history.
Wow. And this guy I don't know, folks. He wrote the book right off my left side here. I always like to point that out, and you can get that book still. It's American Government and Politics Today, The Essentials, and it's, I don't know, how many editions of that book?
It's the first one was in 1984.
Wow.
84, yeah. And so
and
we're in the 20th edition, and I'll try to get you a copy of the new one if it comes out and if the world doesn't end.
we still have
You know,
American politics to talk about.
Well, we still have to wait and see what happens with this election. We can't, come out with a new edition until we know, who is the president and who controls the Senate. The Senate race is the other thing I would ask people to look at what happens in Georgia with those two Senate races that are so crucial. Very interesting lesson in American constitutional history.
Folks, that's Stephan W. Schmidt, the Lugan Endowed Professor of Politics at Political Science at Iowa State University. Doc, once again, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Always my pleasure. Take care. Merry Christmas if I don't see you before then.
I'm hoping we will. Folks, I hope you like Podcast by George, and if you do, go to podcastbygeorge.com. It's the easiest way to follow us because all of the little badges for the platforms, all the various places that you can get the podcast, just click on the one that you like the most, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, iTunes. It'll take you right to those portals, and you can subscribe very easily and be notified when a new podcast releases. But that's going to do it for now. That's all there is, and there ain't no more. That's another podcast by George.